Functions in JavaScript. You've already seen a whole bunch of functions in JavaScript. All our examples had functions, but you haven't been formally introduced to functions. A function is just a logical unit of code which can be called by other code. That logical unit performs a series of tasks, and code outside that function can call or invoke the function in order to perform those series of tasks. Very simple. Also, you can pass in information to the function and get return values from the function. You can pass in information in the form of input arguments and get return values from the function after the calculation has been performed. Now, functions in JavaScript are first-class citizens. Functions can be treated just like we treat numbers or strings in a variety of different ways. This is not true in all programming languages. If you come from C++ or Java, you'll notice that this fact is not true in those languages. What does it mean when we say that functions in JavaScript can be treated just like numbers or strings? There are 3 points here. The first one is that you can store a function in a variable. Just like you can have a string, a number, or a boolean and assign it to a variable, you can assign a function to a variable as well, and later on use the variable name to invoke or call the function. You can store a function in a variable. You can have a function return a function. As you might have noticed, functions can perform a series of calculations and then return the result of those calculations. The result of the series of steps that a function has performed can be another function. Just like you can return numbers, strings, or booleans or objects from functions, you can also return functions themselves. That is point 2. Point 3. You can have a function take in another function as an argument. Remember, we'd mentioned that functions take in input arguments from outside code, use those input arguments to perform a series of steps. One of those input arguments or any of those input arguments can be functions as well. Functions can take in other functions as an input argument. These 3 points put together basically mean that functions are first-class citizens along with strings, numbers, objects, and booleans in JavaScript. Storing a function in a variable, the ability to have a function return another function as a return type, or have a function take in another function as an input argument. These are 3 important points which are necessary for functions to be first-class citizens. In JavaScript, all 3 points apply, which means in JavaScript, functions are called first-class functions. These 3 properties make JavaScript functions first-class functions. The fact that JavaScript functions are first-class functions have several implications in how functions can be used. We'll be seeing a lot of that in the next few lectures. For now, just remember that JavaScript is a programming language that supports first-class functions. Now, languages which support functions as a first-class citizen generally tend to be functional programming languages, which is why JavaScript has a very strong functional programming aspect. If you don't know what a functional programming language is, never mind. There's nothing really to know there for understanding JavaScript functions right now. Functional programming languages basically treat functions as first-class citizens, and it's a certain style of programming. So just remember that JavaScript is a programming language that supports first-class functions. Of these 3 properties that you can see on screen, let's pay special attention to point 2 and point 3. You can have a function which returns a function. The function which returns a function has a specific term. Similarly, you can have a function which takes in as its input argument another function. A function which has another function for its input argument again has a special term with which we refer to it. Functions which return functions as its return value or functions which take in other functions as its input arguments are called higher order functions. They operate on other functions. They take it in as an input argument or return it as a return value. Such functions are called higher order functions. This is just a technical term for you to remember. We are going to have a whole bunch of examples on these that will allow you to internalize and understand this concept thoroughly. For now, just remember what first-class functions mean and what it means to be able to use functions as input arguments or return values.